Arizona treasure hunter, Cody Drake. And
how's it going, guys?
Man, it's turning out, I thought he was pretty cool anyway because of all the stories and that I get to see on his YouTube channel, his Facebook page. But I'm learning that Cody's just more than a pretty face, man. He's got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge for a young kid. So I'm finding out that you've read old Castilian documents and you're learning how they did the old Spanish mining. And he was talking to me about that. So tell me about this stuff, Cody.
Alrighty, so. There's a lot of legends and lore about the Spanish conquistadors mining throughout the American Southwest, and that did happen. But there's a misconception about how they actually transported that stuff. They didn't regularly pack their animals down with silver or gold-bearing rock ore. There was a much easier way to break it down, and they actually referred back to an ancient Roman and pre-Roman way of smelting stuff down so they could transport it more easily back to the mints in Mexico City or Zacatecas, which was a major silver mining area closer to Arizona than Mexico City was. And so here's what they did. Let's pretend this is a ridgeline, and this goes back to ancient Celtic Iberia. So this is the ancient Celts in what's now Spain. Spain was the silver purse of the Roman Empire. And so the Romans got all of their mining knowledge from the Iberian Celts. And here's what the Iberian Celts did when they were they were smelting down their silver ore to make it more easily transportable. They would go to a ridgeline with a high volume of wind. Much like here in Arizona, if you've ever been on top of Four Peaks, it's incredibly windy. On top of the flat iron of the Superstition Mountains, Iron Flats, the flat iron, that's incredibly windy up there too. The top of the San Francisco Peaks in Flagstaff, very windy. They would find places like that and they build stone cairns. It's a great big structure made out of rock, river rock, it could have been shale, anything. But they're gonna make a great big structure with 3 sides. It's gonna look kind of like Lincoln logs, but with it's gonna look like this, but vertical. And they're going to, it's about maybe 6 feet high, maybe 8 feet high. And they're going to fill that void with about 6 feet of wood-burning material. And then at the top, they're going to make a little basket, kind of like a bird's nest. And that's where they're going to put the silver-bearing ore. And then they're going to fill up that void, that fourth wall, they're going to fill that up with other rock. And all that wood and all that tinder is going to be soaked with pitch. They're going to light it on fire. Right at sunset, they're going to come back in the morning. It's going to burn through the night, just like a funeral pyre, but melting silver. And they're going to come back in the morning, and all that wood's gone. That silver reached the right temperature all through the night, and at the bottom is going to be this nice, beautiful, lighter, ugly silver ingot, which is more easily transportable than bags and bags of rock-bearing silver ore. Carrying something like this is much easier than carrying 3, 4, 5 bags of silver ore. And so they would collect these and then they would do a transport back to wherever it was they were going to refine it, because there was no refining these gold and silver deposits out here in what was the frontier. They didn't have the time, the energy, or the resources, and this was a dangerous area. They wanted to make it as easy as possible, as fast as possible, to get back to their home, back to the place where they could refine it. And then from there, it would go to the treasure galleons, and then from there, it would go along the treasure coast towards St. Augustine, and then back to Spain. And
So I want to back you up, because I've never heard this before, and it sounds brilliant to me. I never even would have thought this, but they've got a natural bellows, so with that, it's spiking their temperatures up hot enough to melt that stuff. And so that's ingenious, and I never thought about it. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because a normal campfire, off the top of my head, that can't reach more than like 900 degrees, maybe, I don't know, but with wind constantly burning, it's going to increase that to maybe closer to 2,000 degrees, 3,000 degrees, and through the night, that's going to be hot enough to melt that rock, that silver, into a nice ingot, which is more easily transportable than bags and bags and bags of exhausting weight. That's how it was done.
So Mike, you had some questions. What? Ask me questions.
Yeah. And up in my country, in the Uinta Basin, is where I'm from, the Spanish actually built kilns and smelters. So I guess what you're saying is they would do that and they would mark this spot. They would know where this spot is, I guess, by the stars, by some way they knew how to get back to this spot. So when they got back to their depository or wherever they was taking it back to, they would grade it. They would see what the content of silver is. And then they would come back and build smelters and kilns for tools and to melt and do processing.
Yes, but they wouldn't do the refining out here, or like in the mountains where you're from. They would do all the smelting, like they would do the smelting up here, they would do the refining in the royal refineries in Zacatecas or Mexico City.
That's when they got their marks, their King's Fifth, all that took place. Yeah.
So like a lot of the trail markers leading from the settlements to the mines in the mountains would have been done by also stone cairns, which is just stacks of rocks, and that is the universal trail marker. On modern hiking trails, you're going to see stone cairns marking the trail, and that's been going on since probably the time the Neanderthals were around, or older than that. It's the oldest trail marker known, and it's the easiest to make. It's fast, easy. It's a lot easier than carving a sphinx on a hillside saying the Spanish were here. You know, that takes time, energy, and effort, and a lot of resources they didn't have in a place where the locals might wanted them dead. Just imagine doing that in Afghanistan, how that would go down.
Yeah.
You know?
So I got to ask you, because I already knew you was amazing, and now I think you're even more amazing, because you're telling me you've learned how to read the old Castilian, which is some of the oldest documents. That's what they're written in, and they're hard to decipher. And you've studied and learned how to do that, so you can you can be your own researcher and that type of thing. But here's my question for you right now. Here we go.
Okay.
What got you interested in this, and how did you get started in this?
Well, I got interested in this, kind of like everyone else in the treasure hunting world. They've heard of the Atocha, right?
Yeah.
Well, growing up out here in the Southwest, there's an infinite amount of lost treasure stories, but there's no one to go to ask them, how did you succeed in this? How did you find that treasure? Like, how did you do this? If you go to Florida, there's numerous people you can go to and ask them, how did you find the Atocha? How did you find the Margarita? How did you find the Rosario? How did you find the 1733 treasure fleet? How did you find the Conception? Like, you can go to all these people, and they'll tell you their story, and it all comes down to Spanish documents. Well, okay, let's dive into Spanish documents. So I started just researching Spanish documents, and I learned real quick that there's really two different styles of writing. There is the rolling notary, which once the pen touches the paper, it doesn't leave the paper until the very end, which means it's one solid body. And it takes me an entire day to translate a Castilian document written in the rolling notary, because you have to understand, like, you have to figure out how that person wrote his S's, his F's, his R's, and sometimes they look the exact same with very small subtleties. And then there's the easier way, which is how we normally write cursive or words. It's a word, space, word, space, word, space. And they would call mountains different names back then than they do today. They would call rivers different names back then than they do today. And that's when my method of maps comes into play. I take their old maps and how they called place names, overlay them with our maps. The terrain features stay the same. The names change. That's how you find sites.
Cody, man, you're quickly becoming one of my favorite people. So,
Thank you, Terry.
So with that said, man, that's a wrap, and I appreciate you, Cody. Thank you,
Terry. Thank you.
Whoa, back up. Hold it.
No.
Time.
What?
So how do people, because you got a lot of great information, your Facebook, your YouTube channel, how people find you? How do people get to enjoy and learn from you, like I have?
Well, you can go on the search engines of YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram and type in the Arizona Treasure Hunter, and I'll pop up. And there's a lot of great content. There's a lot of good things on the horizon, so just stay tuned for all the things that are coming up. And there's a lot of good treasure stories, and every week I post things that I find and lost treasure stories that all of the subscribers, all the people watching this can actually go after and search for themselves.
With that said, Cody, thank you, and that's a wrap.
Yeah. See you later, guys.